The Kane Chronicles, the Egyptian part of the Rhydon-verse, a beautiful trilogy of two siblings fighting off the almighty Lord of Chaos with the help of a couple of dim-witted gods. Anyway, hello and welcome back to the Greek Pyramid, and today, as the title suggests, we'll be looking at why the Kane Chronicles is underrated. I'm doing this as I don't see it getting enough love online, and to be honest I think I may have read these through more than the Percy Jackson series. So to start this video, I thought it's best to start with a quick catch-up just so we're all on the same page. Let's take a deep breath, grab a cup of tea, and maybe a snack, whilst I try and sum up these books in less than a minute. Carter and Sadie Kane see their dad killed in the British Museum by Set the God of Chaos in his attempt to free Osiris from the Duat, leading them to find out about their heritage and magicians of being blood of the pharaohs. Pretty soon they find they are harbouring gods, allowing them to learn magic faster and with more power. Little Lord of Chaos tries to rise, they smack him down due to godly powers and the help of a cat. This means they lose their dad kind of more, but also less permanently. Anyway, we don't have time for this. They find that actually this was all planned by Big Bad Lord of Chaos to help him escape, but they manage to stop him. They give up the gods as power is tempting, and Carter finds out the girl he likes actually made a clay and doesn't know him. Second book see them when new recruits. Apophis is stirring a bit and they decide to revive Ra, as they believe he's the only one who'll be able to beat Apophis. So they look for 3 scrolls to revive each aspect of Ra, and after a long old journey kind of managed to do it, but he's senile. They manage to save Zia, but she doesn't really know them. A little while later in the third book, not looking great as the House of Life is constantly attacked, and in their attempts to defeat Apophis they set on the difficult task of using his shadow to execrate him. They manage to banish him with a renewed Ra, who is hosted by Zia, but this action also causes the gods to withdraw from the mortal world. Okay, right, now we're all caught up. Why are they actually underrated? The main duo seem as a good place to start as any. Having the siblings Carter and Sadie telling their story is brilliant, seeing it from both of their perspectives. With them starting off as reasonably estranged siblings, only seeing each other twice a year, they both have some sort of resentment for each other, as they are both a bit jealous of each other's lives. This is then coupled with what they both have to overcome, with Sadie suffering with abandonment issues as Carter has been travelling around the world with their dad, while she is with their grandparents. Carter feels the weight of having his dad's shoes to fill, and escaping his father's shadow. As the books go on, we see them accepting that maybe they don't have it the hardest. It's particularly shown after Sadie learns every aspect of Carter through his Ren. You see their sibling bond being very little at the beginning, in contrast to the end when we see the two of them managing to complement the other, so they can both fulfill their full potential. Even though they still drive each other at the walls, but that is just how siblings work. Even when they're arguing at points throughout the recording, it just helps to reinforce their sibling bond. And to be completely honest, I can relate to Carter as I'm basically a bookish nerd, whilst my younger sister can often seem like Sadie, so the sibling relationship in this book works for me really well. There are so many brilliant characters that help these two along their way, and most of them have great arcs that feel complete by the end and make sense for the characters. They still feel the same in their core but have progressed naturally. Where else to start? The primary protector of these two magicians, Bast, helping protect Sadie from a very early age, posing as her cat Muffin, after she is freed from her prison fighting Apophis. She manages to face Apophis again in battle after feeling she abandoned her post and holding off whilst the magicians fight in the Hall of Ages, showing the bravery she often fears she lacks as she returns to face her old enemy. The way she reacts to the Kanes being put in danger is very sweet, when even by her own admission she is quite selfish, as she is the goddess of cats. Bez, god of dwarves. Fantastic character who is asked by Bast to help protect the main duo. At first he is seemingly not hugely stoked about doing it, but over time he grows to care greatly for them, to the point where he sacrifices his Ren to allow them to buy enough time to reawaken Ra. And honestly, when he has his Ren taken from him, it is one of the saddest moments in the Rhydon-verse as a whole. This leaves him as a shell for a long time, just existing in the care home for the old gods. So I would like to take a quick moment for Bez, whilst I show some brilliant Bez quotes and play some sad music. I mean, Sadie does then manage to reboot him, so it's not like he's gone forever, but I still think the moment was required. Later, he manages to realise he should stop pining after Bast and instead see how good Tararet is for him, despite his embarrassment about the dwarf wedding. Zia, definitely one of the most complex characters in the Kane Chronicles, as she has to deal with a lot of traumatic events. To name a few, her entire village was destroyed, her father figure Iskandar dying seemingly without warning, constantly taught that the gods are what brought about the fall of Egypt, being replaced by a Shabti and being put in a nightmarish dream state as she was hosting a goddess that didn't agree with her, and being tormented by the Lord of Chaos, then hosting the most powerful god Ra and potentially burning everyone around her at any moment. I think that could traumatise most people, so it shows the strength of this character that she manages to overcome all of this while still being a fun, good-natured character. Walt, Anubis, Walt, Nubis, Walt. However you want to refer to them really, I think I'll refer to them as Walt Nubis from now on, talking about the same entity. I think the curse that Walt suffers is a really good idea by Rick, and the magic making it worse, linking back to the mystery of Tutankhamun. The solution of hosting Anubis makes sense, bringing both plot threads together on how to solve this curse, and Anubis unable to find a host. I am less sure about their relationship with Sadie, but more on that later. Julius Kane. Their father, after losing his wife and getting cast out of a prison, is reunited with her, although as the god of the dead Osiris, but it's better than nothing. Although one of my questions is, how long does he get to remain Lord of the Dead? Is it a permanent position? Where did the last host go? Please let me know down below if you know the answers to these questions or you have any theories surrounding this. Amos Kane, the Jazz King. After being almost completely destroyed and corrupted by Set and being held in the first gnome, manages to use the power of Set and control him in the final book, despite the emotional trauma he suffers throughout his possession. Again, another good arc, while showing no one is devoid of chaos, and how it's not entirely bad in the way Set does it. Taroet. Absolute queen. No more needs to be said. I will not be taking any more questions this time and may as well just end the video there. Desjardins. Poor Desjardins, thrown into the role of Chief Lector, only to have to come to terms with the way the world is run for thousands of years might be wrong. His final act is realising their best shot is unfortunately the Kanes, and managing to keep Apophis trapped for a bit longer. Despite his less than favourable opinions about the Kanes at the beginning of the book, him using up his life force to execrate Apophis as his final act redeems him in my eyes. The main two gods we see, Horus and Isis, show how they are set in their ways, wishing to keep banging their heads against a brick wall until they defeat Set. Yet they are still a great source of humour and seem to genuinely care about Carter and Sadie at points, despite the siblings not going along with the gods' plans. Realistically, they need Sadie and Carter almost more than Carter and Sadie need them. The way they interact with the human world feels different from other books in the Raiden verse, as rather than sort of ruling over it, they truly interact with different human beings. Carter and Sadie's spark of human creativity allows events not to be repeated, allowing the world to change, even when Carter and Sadie seem to do ridiculous things, like reawaken Ra, even when he turns out to be a gummy mess, and continue to believe in him. These guys don't really have an arc as such, but that is because they are gods and they are supposed to be set in their ways. I think this kind of covers a lot of the main side characters. There are a lot of other minor side characters, but these are the main ones I thought worth talking about. Sorry if your favourite isn't in here, but I will also just do a quick shout out to Felix, who fits no standard of Egyptian magic with his ice and penguins, but that makes him all the more cute and yet strangely powerful. I thought for this part of the video it'd be worth doing a little ranking of the main antagonists we have throughout the books, to showcase the varying level of good antagonists there are in this series. We'll not include smaller villains like Nekbet, Babby, they don't really get enough book time, they kind of end up on their side, whilst Desjardins we've already spoken about. Number 5. Jacoby and Quai. Henchmen of Vlad who try and say that the Kanes killed Desjardins and are causing the end of the world. Quite ruthless and striking down Leonid without remorse, but just not enough to them really, just felt a bit flat and not enough of a threat. In at number 4, Apophis. You may be thinking, wait a second, the big villain of this entire series is sat at number 4. How can it be that good of a series then? And just give me a second before you completely start to write an angry hate comment. He works as this powerful big bad that is a constant looming threat, but I don't think he really has any redeeming qualities or enough depth to him like higher ups on this list. Being the almighty Lord of Chaos just isn't enough really. It feels like he needs a bit more to him, a more cunning element. Number 3. Vlad Menshikov, the Ice Cream Man. I feel he's the most difficult to place, as he is shown to be an assassin to hunt down rogue magicians, and it's difficult to tell for how long he's been controlled by chaos, compared to all of it being his own actions. I do remember being scared of Vlad when I was a bit younger, mostly due to the imagery of him, but also his torturesque methods. Number 2. Setne. Setne is a great source of entertainment, always being a bit of a sleazeball but managing to keep people on his side no matter what. You know he's going to betray the Kanes at some point, you're just not sure how or when. Obviously he does end up making an escape and causing DSP to go after Carter. At the same time, you can't just not love the guy. Number 1. Set. With Set, I love how he's not truly evil, and by the end he's just like a naughty child just keeping everyone on their toes. With all the gods being just like, oh Set, your bothersome brother, husband, child, always trying to take over the world. But in the end he's a powerful ally with Amos. Set has a lot more to him in the same way as Setne. He's more controlled chaos than Apophis, so he's still trying to have a good time. Also, a bit of a weird side note. I love how he's constantly playing with them. He says bonsoir as the Kanes leave just to make them think he's being hosted by Desjardins. I'm not entirely sure why, but it's just the chaos this guy loves to cause, and that's why he's top of my list. I thought to kind of round off the good parts of the Kane Chronicles, we should just do a little bit of best moments. The fake out. At the end of the first book, when the characters start to realise that Set is actually being manipulated to allow Apophis to set himself free, it's a good turnaround has been hinted to how bad Apophis is throughout the first book. It means you don't get any fatigue from the main villain, as he only appears briefly at the end of the first book, and only truly appears at the end of the third book to destroy civilization. Second up, we have Walt Nubis, when they protect Sadie and go very dark in wrapping Sarah Jacobi in money linen, and sending her straight to the underworld. Just feels like a nice darkness to Walt that we don't usually see from him being a very kind-hearted soul. Third up, we have the senile gods coming back with bears to fight off the demons in the land of the demons. The mixture of the return of bears and the senile gods having a purpose again. Although this does get a bit overshadowed by the fights that come later, it's just a really nice, fun moment where everything feels like it's going well. There are obviously a lot more. You've got Amos working with Set, you've got the Spit God, you've got the camels. There are just so many moments to mention, but those are 3 that I really like. I'm also just going to take this moment to really look at some of the best quotes we see throughout the Kane Chronicles. So we have been banging the Kane Chronicles drum for a little while now, but there have got to be some things I'm less so stoked about. So what are they? I know I'm not necessarily in the minority when I say this, but the Sadie, Walt, Anubis, love triangle, not love triangle, loving them both, doesn't feel as satisfying of an ending to her relationships with them. And with Anubis, I know he's never truly grown up, but Sadie is still 13, whilst he's thousands of years old. But that's not the only reason that Walt and Anubis merged, it was also to keep Walt alive and allow Anubis to exist in the real world, especially as the gods were driven away. I kind of think it maybe should have been one or the other rather than a quite strange compromise. The lack of death. None of the characters we liked died. That may seem like a strange complaint, but even Leonid managed to pull through in the end, even though it seemed he was on death's door. I'll just quickly rattle off the deaths we do see in the book. Iskandar. We don't really know him much when we see him. We only see how much he meant to Zia through her reaction. Menshikov, Desjardins, the Grissoms, Bloodstained Blade, Jacobi, Quai, as well as a lot of demons and monsters. There is nothing really substantial there for us to bite our emotional teeth into on that front. If you ignore Bez losing his Ren, but that's not a death. Overall then, these are shown to be brilliant books. I've kind of only scratched the surface with this review as to why they're underrated. But all in all, a great story. Potentially the best lead characters we see in the Raidenverse. I think the use of magic means there are greater ways to solve problems than we see in some of the other series. This can also help keep you on your toes as to what they are going to do. As a final note, I am intrigued to see how this is translated into feature films on Netflix. I kind of wish that Rick was helming it like he is with the PJO series, but he is still involved, and I think that would end up probably being too much work for him, so I understand why not. I hope it proves enough of a success that they managed to make all 3 and it's done very well. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments about the Kane Chronicles, what you enjoyed about it, if there's anything you don't like about the books. And on that note, I will see you next week for another video. Goodbye.